Now, another thing that I feel impressed to talk about today is being proud of what you're doing here. For many of you, I still sense within you that although you're getting really good gains from what you're doing here, and it's obviously improving the quality of your life, you want to keep it secret from other people. You don't want anyone else to know that you're doing it. So you're actually, to some degree, you're a bit embarrassed by what you're doing here. Now, that's the ego that feels like that. The reality is that if other people want to criticise you for what you're doing here, which is about learning how to integrate more love, be more loving, and to embrace a spiritual life in a really authentic way, then they're just complete egos. And it doesn't really matter what any of those egos think. So if you're limiting the capacity and the space for spirit in your life because you're worrying about what egos think, you will surely fail, because you are prioritising your ego and your vanity over being the vessel for spirit. And that's not going to work for you. You'll get away with it for a short time. If that embarrassment of what you're doing here becomes intense enough, spirit will leave. Because you're saying, oh, no, I choose ego. 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 So spirit will go, okay, and withdraw. So it's important to understand that. And there's no right or wrong choice, but it's important to understand the implications of some of the choices that some of you are making. When you embrace the spiritual path and you want to prioritise spirit, which that's what it is about being on the spiritual path, and embrace the culture of love, you must embrace the culture of love. And being embarrassed about what you're doing, being embarrassed about your spirituality. It's not about going and standing on a soapbox and preaching to everyone or trying to convert everyone, but it's not about shying away from it because you're concerned about what a bunch of egos think. That's choosing ego. And that will create an identity for you which is so much less than what you truly are. So you just have to be content. And spiritually proud, but not spiritual pride. I'm better than because I'm spiritual. I'm not that. But there's a kind of spiritualized pride where you're just like, yeah, this is really cool what I'm doing, and I feel really satisfied doing what I'm doing, and I'm really proud of myself for doing this, and content with myself, satisfied with myself, happy with myself. Not in a self-serving way, but in a spirit-serving way. If you want to succeed on this path, it's important that you get your act together with that. It isn't the Dark Ages where you have to give the appearance that you've converted to Catholicism whilst in secret you are still carrying out your Jewish practices or whatever. We don't live in those times. And maybe in such times it was wise to pretend. There's no room for pretense or inauthenticity on this path. So that's something to ponder on too. And you know, if people are going, what is this thing you're doing? You know, what is this? Is this a cult thing that you're doing or whatever? And you go, oh, it's just so great. It's all about personal growth and empowerment and it making me more successful in all these areas in my life. And I'm just, you know, I just love it, you know. I just love it. People go, oh, that's great for you. I'm really happy for you. But if you go, oh, geez, you know, oh, well, and you're all secretive and you act like you've got something to hide, of course people are going to be concerned. Why wouldn't they be concerned? So if you do that, you're a bloody idiot. If someone that I loved and cared about acted like that about something they were involved in, or really embarrassed and like they had something to hide, of course I'd be concerned. Any reasonable person would be. People ask me often what I do, and I just say, oh, you know, work as a mentor and a coach with a spiritual flavour and teaching people how to actualise their dreams and free themselves from their fear. And people go, well, that's really cool. Even, you know, friends of my adult children. That's really cool. That's great. Good on you, mate. You know, and they're very happy with that. And some of them want to know a little bit more, but usually they just, oh, that's really cool. That's a fun thing. Yeah, your old man's pretty cool, you know. But if I acted all secretive about it, acted like I had something to hide or I was embarrassed about what I was doing, people would have a very different response, wouldn't they? Of course they would. Any reasonable person would. So that's really important. So it's only the ego that would be embarrassed by love. The ego that is embarrassed by actively pursuing a lifestyle which is about grounding and expressing more love in the world. That's only the ego. And the ego is what you need to spiritualise. So if you give the ego the power and you want to hide behind your ego as you relate with the world and act all secretive and act as though you're embarrassed by what you're doing, of course people are going to be concerned, and rightfully so. So it's not about ramming it down people's throats, but you have every right to do what you're doing. It's a wonderful thing that you're doing, learning to embrace the culture of love and to expand your sphere of influence of love. The only opposition that you're going to get to doing that is certainly you're not going to get opposition from spirit. You're going to get opposition from your own ego and the egos of those around you until your own ego is completely spiritualised. So you don't want to be working on spiritualising yourself, bringing spirit into matter, and then in certain areas of your life empowering the ego, because that's self-defeating. You can't do that. Does that make sense? So that's a common mistake that people make as well. And, you know, sometimes people, you know, want to interrogate you about what you're doing, and, you know, they just want to tear everything down that they don't understand. Or they're just ignorant fools. But I'm no different with them. What do? Ah, well, I do this. Work as a mentor and coach. You know, it's got a spiritual bent. It's about helping people to overcome their fear, to embrace love, to build more love into their relationships with themselves, with other people, and to come to an understanding of, you know, the meaning of life and so on. And they go, oh, you're an idiot. And I just look at them and I say, well, I'm sorry, but you've actually confused me with someone that gives a fuck about your opinion. Because I don't. Why would I care about the opinion of someone like that? How could they possibly understand what I'm doing? So I'm not going to try and teach the pig how to sing. And they're the pig. I'm not going to try and teach him how to sing. And I'm certainly not interested in their opinion. At all. I have no interest. I could not be less interested in your opinion. I'll say that to people. I could not be less interested in your opinion. And they're like, how can you not be interested in my opinion? Well, I could tell you, but I probably won't. I'm not interested in their opinion. I don't care. I'm just not interested. I have no interest in at all. I don't value their opinion. Why would I value their opinion? I don't judge them or criticise them, but I don't value their opinion. They're an ignorant pig. I do not value the opinions of ignorant pigs. I don't mean that in a horrible way, but it's just ignorance. And xenophobia and that's all about ego. That's not about spirit. So I'm not interested in any of that. No interest whatsoever. Are you enjoying listening to yourself? Because I'm not listening to you. What? But I'm an important person. People listen to me. Really? Huh. Okay. And it doesn't affect me. It just doesn't affect me. I rarely ever meet anyone that is living authentically enough and has enough light pouring out of them, is obviously illuminated and spiritualised enough that I go, wow. Wow. And just like I'm not interested in what the ignorant pigs have to say, if I see someone in the street and I can sense all this light coming out of them and all this radiating, all this love and that, I'll just walk up to them and say, wow, you're a bright spot in a dark place or something. And they go, oh, thanks, thanks. That's nice or I might have a hug. And they're like, oh, wow, thanks for noticing, Who are you and what are you doing? And oh yeah, I'm doing this. Oh great, good work, Now those sort of people, yeah, that's really cool. But the average person that is so far off track in spiritual terms and so not living a spiritual life, why would I possibly be interested in anything they have to think or say? Now, if I'm going to be guided in any way, shape or form by their opinions, that means that I am guiding myself with other unenlightened egos. That's even worse than letting your own ego be in the driver's seat. You know what I mean? So that's not going to work if you want to be successful on this path. So it's important to understand that. Other people are entitled to their opinions, but their opinions are none of your business. It's just their opinion. And people like that do frequently make that mistake. They confuse us for someone that might give a shit about what they think. It's a common mistake. But just because it's a common mistake doesn't mean that they're right in wanting to or feeling that they are an authority over us. They're not. If you want to be really polite, and it's important that you really look them in the eye. You look them in the eye and you say, perhaps you should find someone that cares. And you just turn around and walk away. Huh? Yeah, but it's when they're trying to really force their opinion onto you, you know. You know, some people are really forcing their opinion on you. You have to counter that. Say, sorry mate, you've confused me for someone that cares.
Michael, what about if they're clients? Clients.
What sort of clients?
I know I'm going to get a little bit of interrogation when I go back. I would love to say that, but I can't.
Why?
Obviously.
Do you really need them?
No, not really.
Well, you're probably better off without them. You probably create space for 4 new ones that you really enjoy. So, really, you don't have to be horrible, but you know, it's hey, look, you know, I'm not going to tell you how to live your life. So how about you don't tell me how to live mine? And as a matter of fact, I'm really not interested in your opinion. And they probably won't come back, and that's a good thing. Yeah. Now, if most of your clients are like that, you'd have to say you need to look inside yourself. But they're obviously not. So don't actively encourage them to come back. Because you actually create space. And if you are attracting a different kind of clientele, that person or one of those people, you know, might turn off one of your best spiritual clients that tells everyone don't go there because of the certain people that are there. So in the grander scheme, you're probably better off to actually discourage them from coming back. You know, I've had, you know, over the years, when I was doing readings and when I was doing a lot of counselling, and you know, I would, you know, not frequently, but you know, sometimes I'd have someone that came along, and I'd just say after the first session, look, you know, I really don't feel we're a good fit. Sometimes, you know, because at the time I was very aware of my own patterns, sometimes that person's patterns were just very similar to mine, and I just felt, I'm not sure, you know, if I'm going to be able to stay clear, because if we go into some of that stuff, and I know I've still got some of that in me, I'm just not sure if I'm going to be able to remain in involved attachment. So I really don't feel that I'm the right person to work with. And I just didn't charge them, and away they went. And those people would often refer people to me. You know, it was funny. And there were some times that people would come along, and I'd just have to say, you know, I don't like you. So I don't feel that I'm the person for you to work with, because I just don't like you. And they'd say, you know, actually I don't like you either. And I'd say, yeah, so that's, you know, and that's fine. And they'd go, oh, thanks. And away they'd go. It's funny, you know, if you're just honest with people, a lot of the time that's the sort of response that you have. Yeah.
What if they're family?
Sorry?
What if they're family?
What if they're family? Well, members of your real family, you seldom grow up under the same roof with the members of your real family. Your real family are those people that you share mutual joy and respect with. And you must have, you know, a friend or two that you just, you get each other and you love each other.
Only a couple.
Yeah, well, they're family. You don't have to be biologically related. Who here has people in their family that they just don't really get on very well? You just don't resonate with, so you just don't have much to do with them. And after a while, those people are usually very happy with that, because they don't want to have much to do with the crazy black sheep spiritual person in the family either. So if people aren't prepared to accept you as you are then they're not really family, let's face it, you know, and you're probably annoying the shit out of them, and they don't look forward to those family get-togethers any more than you do because they have to be there with you. So you're probably better off just to not do it. It's funny, over the years, you know, at different times, members of my family, I remember when I gave up engineering when I was 30, set for life, and members of my family would actually ring me up and say, I'll pay you to get a haircut and get a real job. And I'd say, how much? I always strung mine. But quite a few of my relatives actually did that. They said, look, you know, you're obviously wasting your life. I'll pay you if you get a haircut and get a real job. Go back into engineering. But you were so good at it. It's like, well, okay. And yeah, all those people, 20 years later, all those relations have come back to me and said, you know, I actually really respect you and respect what you've done now, but I was pretty concerned there for a while. But their concern didn't translate to my concern. I would just make sure that when I was talking to them, that I wasn't apologising for what I was doing, that I wasn't trying to hide anything, I wasn't being secretive. I was sharing with them how I'm obviously becoming more successful in all these areas in my life, although perhaps obviously I'd probably be making a lot more money if I was still doing what I was doing. In 1993, I was on about 75 grand a year. And I was 30 years old. When I said I wanted to leave, they offered me a company car. Then they offered me a house, rent-free, and bonuses. And you know, one of the big bosses came down to see me and he said, you're not going to stay, are you? I said, no. To be really honest, I really feel my spirit guides, I use those terms, he was a religious kind of person, very religious. And I said, you know, my spirit guides, my guardian angels, are telling me that my time here is finished, that I need to move on, that I've got other things to learn and other places to be. And he can understand that, even though he was a very religious person. And he wasn't happy. He really wasn't happy. He came down 3 or 4 days later and he said, you know, I've been praying for you, that you'd realise that, you know, you're doing the wrong thing. And this morning when I was saying my morning prayers, I just got so clearly that you're actually doing the right thing. So I'm going to give you the redundancy that you want. So they gave me about 100 grand and I walked away. So I paid the mortgage off and then I had no idea what I was going to do. And I was just led step by step by step by step by step. And I heard some years later that he'd taken the empty-handed leap into the void now, and he's now restructuring the way that sheltered workshops deal with disabled people. Absolutely loving it, and tells everyone that he credits me with him having the courage to do that, and his heart's singing now. And yeah, the journey. But I find, you know, so much people around you are just concerned for you. So if you're not secretive, you're not hiding anything, you're not apologising, you're not acting like you're being something's happening to you against your will, then they're fine with it. And you're obviously being more successful, having less fear, being more adventurous with life in a really wise way. Of course people are going to go, yeah, well obviously it works for you. Maybe they'll actually be interested in what you're doing. More likely they'll just go, oh, well, it works for you. Whatever makes you happy, mate, you know. Whatever makes you happy, dear. Good on you. And you know, look, when I did all those years I did readings, and people would, you know, drive from Melbourne and stay in a motel overnight and come and have a reading with me. It was bizarre. And I don't even know how they heard about it. And I even had some people come from overseas to have readings with me. I never knew. I just got a phone call and I booked them in and they came in, or I did a distance reading or whatever. And all those years that people were coming fairly regularly, because my readings were never about knights in shining armour and so forth, people would get so annoyed and they'd storm out, grab the cassette tape, the recording of it, and they'd storm out. And I'd go, oh, well, that was successful. And nearly every time when I had that kind of extreme reaction, some months down the track or even years down the track, they'd get back in touch with me and they would say, that was the best thing that ever happened to me. That was the biggest wake-up call I've ever had. And although at the time I was so angry with you, my whole life is different now because of that. So in those moments I just had to trust Spirit. And part of me wanted to try to placate them and settle them down before they left. But it just felt like, hey, listen, that's the message. Don't shoot the messenger, That's the message that's coming through. And see, I never fished. I never knew anything about the person. They came in, they sat down, I tuned in and I started to talk. I never had any idea of anything to do with their life, or they'd take it away, and then I eventually stopped it because I started to get the regular people who just wanted to have a reading every month, and that's not what it's about. I used to say no more often than once a year. And then after I'd been doing it for some years, people would come back the next year and they'd get really angry with me and they'd say, that's exactly what you said last year. You just must say the same thing for everyone. And I'd say, I don't even bloody remember you, because everyone thinks that you remember them. Remember last year when you did that reading for me and you said, I haven't got a bloody clue. I don't even remember you. I do a lot of readings, I just don't remember you. Oh, you must, because you've said the same thing. And I say, well, did you action anything that Spirit said? No. Well, of course you're going to get the same reading. You haven't changed. When you change, you'll get more further instruction, Oh, so I just ended up, I just didn't do them anymore because people just want to, make themselves dependent on you, and that's not what it's about. So started doing less of that and more of the counselling, Cosmosis style of thing, more of the mentoring. And how are you feeling now? Luckily, I don't really care how you feel or what you're projecting at me, and I'm certainly not going to take it personally. The only thing I take personally is my own person. Oh, nice person. Hello, person. This is my person. I take him most places I go. It is nice. Transmute the resistance, release the heaviness. Now, I'll wait.